I hope not.
Not too long. I think we've just got to wait for the ECB to give the green light, really, and then it's whether people actually want to do it or not.
Yeah, we were chatting about this the other day.
Because I don't necessarily think there won't be flooding in.
Right, guys, we're live on our Facebook webinar for the day. It's just loading, sorry. Redirecting to Facebook Live. Spot on. So I believe we're live on Facebook now. Welcome today to Rob Taylor, special guest we've got. Rob has joined us. For those who don't know about Rob, ex-Scotland international cricketer, ex-Leicestershire international, ex-Loughborough University, current Loughborough University women's coach. Rob, tremendous to have you on today. Thank you so much for joining us. And we're going to find out a little bit more about what you've been up to, Rob, recently, and just a few updates, really, and find out how life is with you. So welcome to you, Rob. Welcome, Ben, as well. Obviously, our lead coach here at TFCC. Guys, we have got an array of things to go through today for you. Before we start, it must be worth pointing out, yes, I am out in the garden, in my natural habitat, where I feel most comfortable away from cricket, with the green fingers that I have. So I'm more than happy to be here. Rob, firstly, how's your gardening?
Yes, gardening has not got any better.
Good.
Just looking out, there's still some green patches, but there's also a lot of brown patches where I've tried to get the lawn looking like Wimbledon.
Nice.
But it's not great, if I'm honest. Minimalistic, I'd say.
Yeah, you strike us as this sort of artificial grass type sort of guy, mate. You know, the sort of just lay some artificial grass down and then let that be it, really. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, I think about right. Yeah, it'd be easier. It'd be a lot flatter than my garden is currently as well if it was artificial.
Perfect, mate. Perfect. All right, all good. Right, mate. So, Rob, just to kick us off, really, I've got a few bits to go through with you. Just for those who are tuning in, obviously, we're going to do the week in cricket as well. So, what's happened this week in cricket? They're going to go through updates from the ECB. We're going to look at what the announcement meant for cricket, what it meant for club cricket. Some of the bits Jofra Archer stated this week as well. I'd like to touch on Chris Wood's bits about his gambling and how he's spoken so openly about that in the news in the last week or so. We'd like to go through bowling machines at some point today, and we've had various bits on how they can be used appropriately, safely, and I think that's quite timely before we get back out there. And just a couple of questions that have come in from guys who've been watching in previous weeks. So, Ben, do you want to kick us off with anything for Rob, please?
Well, I can do, mate. Rob, can you tell us a little bit about what Oakham have been doing recently? I know they've been doing some stuff to raise some money.
Yeah, definitely. So we've, I suppose the big thing at the minute is everyone was gearing up for the season. You know, when the whole lockdown started, I was in Cape Town on a pre-season tour with the Loughborough Uni lads, and suddenly we were all flying home, and everyone was kind of getting ready for what was going to be a really, big summer of cricket I think in the whole country, but also for us especially. We were heading in as a club into our 150th year at Oakham, so we had loads planned. We'd had a really successful last year with the first team getting promoted back into, or into the Premier League. And even our second team and our Sunday team had successful seasons as well, gaining promotion in their respective leagues. So, it was all geared up to be the perfect year of cricket for everyone. And obviously this is, that we find ourselves in this current situation. And we basically just said, well, what can we do to try and raise a little bit of money, but also keep guys together? I think it's very easy in the lockdown to almost become a little bit of a hermit and kind of lose that social contact with people. And for some people that'll be absolutely fine. But for others, and we found that there were, a few guys at the club and myself included, we started missing that social interaction. And because we couldn't go out and play on a Saturday, we couldn't train in the week, guys started getting on the road running, getting out on their bikes. And we just thought, let's do something that raises a little bit of money for a local cause. So we decided to do the Trussell Food Bank in Oakham and Stamford.
Perfect.
So yeah, so it was, you know, it was brilliant actually. There were 9 of us who set out to do the journey from, you know, do it virtually from Oakham to Edinburgh and back.
Yeah, we saw that. Great. That's a great
Yeah,
idea. Obviously,
it was
with your
really nice.
connection.
But you know, we ended up. It was amazing actually, the uptake from guys at the club and the generosity of local people. You know, we ended up with enough miles for a second team to go to Taunton and back. So guys had done their own. You know, said actually, right, while the main group's out doing their exercising, I'm going to go and do a 5k run or, you know, 20k on the bike, and they kind of gave them to us as guest miles. And yeah, as I say, we got enough miles from those guys to get to Taunton and back. So it was just, you know, it's just been a great thing. One, to raise a bit of money, but also, you know, it's carried on since then with within the WhatsApp group, and guys are posting what they're doing each day, and it's just trying to, you know, motivate a few guys who are, you know, missing cricket, and hopefully, you know, going to benefit everyone in the long run. When we do hopefully get back out, we might be a little bit fitter than we would normally be.
Perfect. I mean, that's a really key thing, isn't it? There, like you said, you've turned what could be perceived as quite a negative situation into well, an optimistic, positive one by bringing the guys together. I think that there's been various things, hasn't there, up and down the country and around the county as well, about how clubs have brought themselves together. And I think we were just talking before we came live, weren't we, about making the most of a situation and those who adapt the best. And I think that it's clear that to everyone what Oakham have done, and I think that, you know, refreshing and great for club cricketers around to see guys enjoying each other's company and pulling together. I think that is what most club cricketers miss, I think, is that element of that. So that's brilliant. Rob, we have got a question, and this hasn't come in, but I'm interested. What choice of lycra is it you go for?
What choice of lycra?
On the cycle, yeah.
On the cycles, there's some padded.
I think you're at least an 80% polyester, man.
Yeah. Plenty of padding, I think, is key when you're on the bike. But what I have realised is cycling kit is pretty expensive, so I'm having to be quite careful with how much I buy. Because I have a bit of a tendency to, when you're scrolling through Instagram and the adverts pop up, it's quite easy.
We can get an online petition to Russell Cobb for a pay rise if you like, Rob. So no problem at all, mate. All good. At least you've got to be thankful that it's not Neil Southern or Nick Beggy in lycra. So there's always a positive there. I thought I'd get my little dig in on your behalf for Nick Beggy early on, because he's already provided some stuff to get through it. So Nick's just commented, actually. Guys, before we carry on, just welcome to those who have joined us today. I've got a little morning from Michael O'Connor. I know Ali Wall's watching here. Brent Williams watching from Australia. Brent, good to see you, mate. And obviously Nick, good to see you as well. Guys, anyone who's got any comments or any questions as we go throughout this, please do chip in. It would be good to hear. So Rob, what's the feeling at Oakham on the return to doing some sort of cricket? We've heard a lot this week, and it just seems to have taken up a lot of our time in these chats. And we want to sort of limit the discussion around, you know, can we net, can't we net, how do we net, this and that. But we'll touch on it briefly, because I think it's the elephant in the room. What's the feel at Oakham?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I think it's a bit mixed. I think some guys are desperate to get out training. You know, we look at some of the youngsters that we've got at our club who are, you know, we talk about Nick. You know, his lad Will, who's on the Leicestershire age groups. You know, it could have been a big summer for him, potentially getting a bit of first team cricket and stuff in the Premier League and getting that experience. You know, it was set to be a big summer for guys like that and for guys to test themselves in the Prem. So I think some of the guys are really keen to get back. You know, I know that Nick's actually been down on the roller and had the mower out, and you know there is a strip being cut for when we do get the green light to go and net, and you know even then I suppose it's about doing it in the right way and setting up a system that is safe.
And what do you see that being? I mean, you're a cricket man. You obviously read a lot of the bits about in the press at the moment about different protocols that can be taken. I know we're all waiting on sort of these imminent ECB announcement. What are the basic things you think that we can be doing? Like if you're going to go net tomorrow, for example, what would you suggest? I
mean, if it was safe to go net tomorrow, it would have to be, for me, it would have to be, you know, probably maximum of 2 people there, and doing everything that you can to make sure that I suppose there's no cross contamination, I suppose, whether that's the right word or not, but using the ball and that sort of thing, and just trying to minimise any risk that you can of spreading it. I think with the announcement from, you know, the Prime Minister at the weekend, we've already seen, you know, people in London with buses emptying with, you know, so many people on them and tubes and stuff like that. It does worry me a little bit. I suppose being in a fairly quiet area of Leicestershire, you know, in Rutland, you kind of feel a little bit away from that, but you still, you know, there's still cases here. And I think you've just got to be really safe with what you do. I certainly don't think I'll be doing any one-to-one coaching with players for a while, just because of it's then just more contact with more people, which for me just increases the risk. And I think what's really key, as you know, I saw Josh Butler say something a couple of days ago, basically with the England lads coming back to training, saying that there's, you know, they're not being pressured to do it. You know, if guys feel like it's not safe and they don't want to do it, then there's no pressure to do it. And I think that's really important at this time, because, you know, everyone wants to play cricket, but also everyone's got different situations potentially at home or within their family where it might make it unsafe to do so.
That's interesting. I know Ben, you've got a couple of ideas. Sorry, for those who have just joined us, we've got Rob Taylor today, current women's coach for Loughborough University, and ex-Scotland international cricketer, World Cup competitor, and ex-Leicestershire county cricketer. Rob's live from his home there. I'm also live from my home. Ben's live from a cell, though, it looks like, by the looks of his background. At least myself and Rob have made the effort to aesthetically please people here. Ben, obviously, you've had a lot of thinking time whilst, I'll say lockdown, mate, but whilst being locked in by the looks of it. So have you got any comments on how you think sessions could be run safer? I know we've had a few guys sort of asking about it.
We're still talking about netting, aren't we?
Yeah.
I think so. What the ECB have said is that their men's players are going back to individual training, aren't they? So that'd be a one-to-one basis, no contact with anyone other than sort of the coach and the player, I think.
Yeah.
I assume that's the arrangement they're going with there, and obviously keeping a distance. I think if they're saying that's a safe option for that level, then that can only be the way that the recreational game will go as well. But can it go that far so soon? I don't know. I think obviously people are saying, the government are saying you can play golf, tennis. I know golf and tennis are two things that people have been.
Archery.
Yeah. People have been doing, but mainly because their governing bodies have released sort of a statement or a list of things that you need to do. And to be honest, I just think the ECB is taking its time to put those in place to give people the green light.
I mean, Rob,
again,
jumping in there, Ben, sorry. Rob, I just want to get Rob's view there. Being involved in a professional, semi-professional setup as you are at Loughborough, as we'd probably call it, have they released anything? I mean, from all understandings, the professional players are saying that communication has been excellent throughout all this.
Yeah, I think for us at Loughborough especially, you know, we've obviously got the ECB on site, so we're pretty much up to date with what they've been saying. I mean, the big challenge for us at Loughborough is you've got however many thousands of athletes who are all desperate to get back to training on one campus, and that itself poses massive issues. So, you know, it's a massive piece for the university to work through about, you know, how they get teams back. But for us, we've had our university season scrapped. We're, you know, heading into the new women's elite domestic structure going forward, which hopefully we can get some cricket in this summer, into sort of August and September time. But yeah, at the minute, I think the communication for us has been very good from the ECB.
That's interesting, Rob, isn't it? Because a lot of the rec side at the moment are suggesting otherwise. If you're looking at social media and Twitter, and I think people are, because this lockdown's gone on so long now.
Tom, if you don't mind me hopping in.
Yeah, no, cool. I was going to come back to that.
I think there's a difference. I think there's a difference with what you say there between receiving the information in good time, which is, I assume, what you're getting at, and also receiving the information that they want to hear. And I think to a certain extent, the recreational game hasn't got the information that it wanted this week.
It's a great point.
Which was obviously the government saying you can play sport with members of your household. you can play sport with members of your household or one person from outside your household. So the first thing that goes on in my head is, oh, I can go and have a net with a mate. But the ECB haven't said that you can do that.
In all fairness, Ben, Maggie Silver gets some decent carry, I've heard.
But I just think people haven't necessarily got the information they wanted. And I don't think it's because the ECB are trying to set out their own rules. I think it's just because they want to make sure they get all the information right before they send it out.
And no disrespect to England golf, England hockey, England table tennis, whatever it is. The ECB is massive compared to that, isn't it? And not only that,
I just think they're different sports, Tom.
But it's a sport that's governed, isn't it, Ben, as well, by everything. That's lots of the local football leagues, etc., and rugby leagues are often segmented in certain sports from the governing body as such, and they can go their own ways. I think the ECB, as Rob says there, women's, men's, club cricket, junior cricket, disability cricket, there's so much it needs to cover to get right here that I don't know what you think on this, guys, but if you only get one shot at this first statement, don't they, to club cricketers? If they get that wrong,
I think,
and it's interpreted wrong,
I think I made the point
that's a massive error, isn't it, that could potentially happen?
Well, I think I made the point last time, Tom, which was just, I don't know what you think about this, Rob, that actually to recreational cricketers quite a while ago when the ECB first made their statement, they didn't need to necessarily say as much as they did. They've released quite a few long statements when really they could have just said, follow the government advice. And up until this point, following the government advice would have meant no cricket, end of. It doesn't need to be a discussion that's had. They don't need to then come out and say you can't play cricket because it's blindingly obvious to hopefully all people.
But then when you can play cricket,
I think they're obviously.
Sorry, Rob.
So yeah, I think it's obviously they've just got to be. They want to be careful and make sure, as you say, that they get that communication, they get it right. And actually, if you look at cricket, it's probably up there in terms of sports for potential for people to catch coronavirus, just because of the way that the ball gets passed around, probably 5 or 6 people every ball,
8-hour games,
someone along the line, maybe 2 people are going to spit on it and rub it on the trousers and then pass it to someone else. So I think actually, the return to play for cricketers and for cricket in general is absolutely massive and so important that they do have to get it right. I think as a governing body, if they're seen to have made a wrong decision, well, you just can't afford that, can you? And you can't essentially, what happens is if you get it wrong when you talk about this return to play, you're potentially talking about affecting people's lives. And I think that is, they're trying to minimise the risk of anything happening within cricket at this stage. And you're just even to the point that, the England had to come back next week, how much they've had to go through and the strict protocol they've got to get to or follow to get back to some sort of training that may give them some test match cricket later in the summer. Still might not, we still might get no cricket at a point this summer, but that's what no one really wants that, do they? Let's be honest. We're hoping for some cricket. But I think just that return is pretty important. But the point you made on talking about, what people wanted to hear, that's massive. Everyone wants to hear you can go and net in some form. But actually how they go about that's massively important, because not everyone's in, people who take my household, for example, my wife, bless her, she's not the best at cricket. So I can't go and net with her, She doesn't like facing the sidearm, so I can't practice my coaching skills against her. So it's people in that situation where they may be the only cricketer in their household.
It's bizarre, isn't it? I've seen some really funny things going around, probably not suitable for today, actually, but about, the sort of what you can and can't do. And it's, guys, thanks for that. I think that they're 2 great responses and kept it quite professional. So I think that's probably enough on the responses we've heard. So they've said the government, they professional sport from the 1st of June. ECB are aiming for the 1st of July, maybe. But moving on from that, Rob, just tell us a bit about the current state of the women's game and how things are looking on that front. I listened to the podcast last week with Rainford Brent, I think it is, and her views on it. I'm always sceptical when there is viewpoints coming from the counties associated with more affluent areas and the areas where they've got the backing and the money behind it. What's your view on how this is going to impact the women's cricket, or not necessarily what you predict, but how is it already impacting it?
Yeah, I think from my point of view, there's not been a better time to be a young female player, purely because, you know, the ECB are now putting in a structure where, following on from the success of the Super League, which they had over the last 4 years, you know, that was a competition that grew and grew and grew in terms of a fan base, and got good international players in and overseas players. I think now the new structure where we're going to have 8 regions essentially just brings all the talent together to create a more secure pathway. You know, within women's cricket, as it currently is, it's not, you know, it's not your first class counties and then your national counties. Everyone plays essentially, you know, against everyone. So, you know, a Lancashire could play against a Cumbria, for example. You know, in the men's game, you'd never see that happening, but in the women's game, that was the case. So I think with the new structure is going to bring, you know, one, it's going to bring the talent together, but it's also going to bring more professional players into the game. And as soon as you can invest money in a player full time, that then massively increases the work that you can do with them. I think as well, you know, we're now at the point where, you know, women's cricket is massively on the map. And for young female players, that's something to aspire to. And they've now got female role models growing up. You know, I listened to Catherine Brunt a couple of years ago. She did a masterclass, and someone asked her, you know, who was her hero growing up? She said Darren Gough. You know, she didn't have a female role model to look up to when she started playing. Whereas now, you know, there are young girls out there who will have that. At the minute, it's 20 England players, but actually with the new regional setup, there's going to be, you know, 5 full-time pros in each region, which is kind of the next level down for those girls to look to, so they can almost see their pathway through. And I think the Super League kind of started that, and now this is going to be a stage where, you know, you're going to have those professional players, and we as coaches are going to be able to work with those players more, and hopefully, you know, those players will develop quicker. And then you're creating more players to go and play for England. You're increasing that talent pool, which is essentially what we want to do. We want to bridge the gap between what was county cricket and international cricket.
I guess the last thing you want to see is dropping off now. All the investment and hard work, and people can see that the level and standard of women's cricket has gone through the roof. Exponential, you know, growth. That's what we've seen in the last 24 months. The last thing anybody now wants to see, with all that effort, momentum that's been gained and the investment, is any reverse of that on the development side.
Yeah, definitely. So, I think it's got to be the whole. It's got to be the whole way through the game, and I think, you know, within the Super League setup, there was, you know, there was a lot of ambassador work that went on with the Super League players going into clubs and hosting all-star events and stuff like that, and that was brilliant for trying to get out into the area to, you know, to boost numbers and awareness of women's cricket. I think the key now is, and, you know, obviously without going back to it, we're in such a unique situation. You're right. There's a potential that a little bit of momentum falls off with no cricket this summer. But, you know, we talk about making the best of a bad situation. Well, actually, do you know what? Does that just give us some more time, if we don't get any cricket this year, to make sure that next year is absolutely brilliant in terms of everything that we can do? Yes, we might be financially worse off, but, you know, we can really absolutely put this new elite domestic structure out, go all guns blazing with that, go all guns blazing with 100, and, you know, really, really make women's cricket big. I think, you know, it's a big time for women's cricket in England, you know, with professional players and, you know, international cricket as well. Is, you know, you're right. You don't really want to lose any of that momentum that's been built.
No, that's great, Rob. Thanks for your insight
Just
on that.
On that note, Rob, do you know if there's any plans in place for a similar return for the England women's players as there has been for the England men?
I'm unsure in terms of the women specifically. I think they're still keen to try and get some of their international cricket on this summer. It will probably follow a similar sort of protocol as the men. But actually, working out the logistics of doing that is pretty tough. So for the women, it's trying to find I suppose a venue that is safe and they can get a match on without any issues. And there's potential that it may be, Loughborough would be a great place to use because you can almost shut down the area around the cricket ground and make it as safe as possible. You've got accommodation on site, so it wouldn't be a bad spot to use. But again, it's going right. Well, is it safe to do so? That's always going to be, I think, the final question when it comes to can we get this game on or not? Is it safe?
Yeah, and you need an opposition as well, don't you?
Yeah, that's it. If you talk about the West Indies potentially coming over for the lads, and they're going, well, we're only going to travel if it's safe.
Yeah,
and
inter-island flights.
I don't blame them.
I think we don't appreciate their position, do we? I mean, I read upon it quite detailed this week, and they've got however many islands it is to make sure there's restrictions in place, not just one island.
We had Australia and New Zealand as two hosts, and also we had England in our group. So actually, when you look at it, you go, do you know what? That's a pretty good group to be qualified for that, for the World Cup. And I think, and then we got out there and we played against New Zealand first game. That was an awesome experience to play the host country in New Zealand. That was it was awesome to be a part of that. But the whole event was brilliant. We had 4 of our 6 group games in New Zealand, and every city you went to in New Zealand, the lead up to that game, the whole city was on board with that game. It was like, oh my God, okay. New Zealand are playing Scotland in Dunedin. Okay, right. So the whole of Dunedin went crazy for that week because they knew they had a World Cup game coming. And we didn't get to play up in Oz much. We played in Hobart in a couple of games, and that. So I don't know how it went, how the hype was in Sydney and Australia, Sydney and Melbourne and Brisbane and Perth. But, even in Hobart, it was a pretty big deal that there was a World Cup game there. And we obviously, we had our expectations. We sort of went into it thinking we've got Bangladesh, Sri Lanka and Afghanistan as the other teams in our group. We played Afghanistan loads in previous years and thought, you know what, we can beat those guys. Bangladesh were lower down in the rankings than some of the other teams in our group, so we thought, do you know what, we have a good day, we could turn those guys over. And then you're looking at, well, can you potentially win 1 or 2 more games elsewhere, a couple of upsets, and you never know. You kind of dream of doing as best you can in those comps. And we gave it a pretty good go. Gave New Zealand a decent run. A very close game against Afghanistan. We got over 300 against Bangladesh. So we had moments in that comp where we felt like we were in a chance to win some games. But ultimately we didn't, and that's always the disappointing thing of trying to balance up I suppose the feeling of, you know what, we're going to a World Cup, how amazing is this? And actually being professional, competitive sportsmen who want to win games of cricket. That was the end result, is that guys still wanted to win games of cricket. It wasn't just we're going there to play 6 games and have a bit of fun. We want to win games of cricket.
Apparently though, Rob, am I back on now? I think 2 technical issues there. Yeah. Sorry, no, I just had Shane Watson on the other line, mate. And apparently for him, it was just a bit of fun when he thought face a few of your left arm seamers. Now, for those who don't know, I got sent a fantastic video clip about 10 days ago, which I did forward on to Rob one of the most talented, respected league cricketers around, Ian Kirk. So, Ian, thanks for that. Knowing that Rob was coming on. And the video is sort of I don't know if you want to call it a montage or a trilogy or really whatever you want to call it, but it involves Rob and Shane Watson exchanging pleasantries. We've got a lip reader on it, and it's along the lines of get your beep beep pads out the way, pal, and before sort of slapping him 15 love down the ground into the sight screen. So for those who get a chance, have a look at that interaction. Rob, we thought we'd ask the man himself why he's here. Just talk us through. And firstly, we've got to say fair play, because let's be honest, we all think he's a bit of a prat. I mean, not having seen or played against Shane Watson, you take one look at the bloke and you think typical Aussie. So, Rob, from your side, and be as PC as you like with this, what actually happened with Mr. Watson?
Yeah, so do you know that Australia game is interesting because we at Hobart you sit side on and you sit behind a glass panel, and the toss went up while we were warming up. Australia won it and decided to have a bowl. And as you can imagine, everyone in the ground was like, why wouldn't you bat, get as many as you can, and then bowl them out? You know, kind of that kind of thought. So we went out to bat, and Carl Kurtzer opened up, faced the first ball, and I think Johnson or Stark bowled it. They essentially had a seam attack of Johnson, Stark, Cummings, and then I think Watson was actually fourth seamer. Maxwell was bowling some spin. But the first ball, Kurtzer got bumped and literally flinched, and that was it. You know, hardly moved and hit the keeper. You know, the classic Australia, hit the keeper, miles back, reverse cut, and everyone behind the screen sat there just went. And it flashes up on the board, you know, 150 clicks plus, and everyone's just going, oh my God, right, okay. And we had Paul Collingwood with us as assistant coach. And he said something brilliant to us. He said, after that first ball, he said, lads, just give yourself a few balls. It won't seem as quick as it looks. And everyone was like, yeah, right, mate. Yeah, okay. Yeah. But, you know, we went out and we batted and, you know, we didn't get loads. I think we got 160 odd or something like that. And do you know, it was the only time in my career, actually, that I played a game and I've gone, do you know what, these guys are next level. You know, they are unbelievable. When we played against New Zealand, you know, a couple of those guys had been over playing county cricket, so I'd had the chance to play against them. And you know, the Australia game was the first time I'd actually got a little bit caught up in the whole event of, you know, being in a World Cup in Australia against Australia. And when it came, you know, batting wise, it was, you know, survival for me. And, you know, we talk about players needing to have a plan the whole time, and you know, how you're going to play certain bowlers and everything. And it's really interesting looking back at it now, having coached, looking back on that experience and going, yeah, do you know what? I didn't have a plan to how I was going to score against guys who were bowling 90 plus. And that was a really interesting kind of thing for me to look back on. But, and it's something that I say to, you know, all the players I work with now is you need process. But going back to the bowling and everything, I think, you know, to pump my own tyres up, got Finch early, lack of pace, caught cover. So he was through the shot about a day and a half early. But
apparently it lost a bit in the pitch, they reckon.
Yeah. But Watson came in, it was interesting. He's, you know, he's the one that, as you say, you know, everyone looks and goes, oh, not sure about him. And
is his chest really that big, Rob, or does he just stick it out?
Big man. You know what? He is a big man.
He's a big boy, is he?
Yeah, he's a big unit.
I think a chest-off between you and him would be interesting. In fact, no, we had Harry Gurney on a webinar last night, and a chest-off between you three would be tremendous, wouldn't it? Because Harry would definitely be a sure in third.
Yeah, he was a big, imposing guy, you know, and the way he batted, you know, the way I suppose their whole their whole team. They've been kind of up and down the order a little bit through that series, and he came in at 3, and I thought, do you know what? Yeah, we've got 1. We might get 2. You never know. So I ran in, whacked me through cover. And he goes for Flanagan point me at all. You know, I've never run in and then suddenly bowled 90 miles an hour or got a wicket. It's always ended up badly, pretty much. So I had a little word to Shane, kind of basically saying that, you know, the only reason he was batting 3 was because he's playing Scotland, and you know he needed to get some easy runs to make sure he played in, you know, the semi and the final if they got that far. And do you know what? He bit harder than I thought he would. So yeah, he kind of came back and was like, you know, what, mate? What are you saying? What are you saying? With a few choice words in between. And then as I turned around, he said, "I'm going to hit this one so hard back at you." And I went, "Do you know what? You're probably good enough to do that as well." So I ran in the next ball, kind of going, "Please don't hit it back at me. Please don't hit it back at me." And luckily, he hit it the other side of the stumps. But geez, he gave it a whack. But do you know what? It was at that time. You know, it was our last game of the World Cup. It was, you know, we weren't going to win that game. It was, you know, it created a little bit of fun at the time with a few videos going around, and with the highlights coming back on in the last couple of weeks, it's doing the rounds again. So something that will be out there, I think, on YouTube.
Tom's gone into slow motion now, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has, yeah.
Can you hear me, mate?
Do you know what though? Interestingly, that game, that was the last group game. Yeah, I can do. Yeah, that was the last group game. Interesting. One thing that we didn't do as a team, which looking back, we probably should have done, was we didn't go to the Aussie dressing room for a drink. And actually, you know, that was something that we thought, you know, it's the end of our World Cup, and we had our kind of little bit of a, you know, a few drinks in our change room, because it was the end of what had been an incredible journey over 2 years to get to that point and then play in that competition. But actually, you know, we potentially missed a bit of a learning opportunity to go, let's go into their dressing room, let's have a couple of drinks and just, you know, chat to their guys and learn off them. And I think that's something that within county cricket we did at Leicester quite a lot, was try and have a drink with the oppo. And I think potentially, you know, we missed a trick there. Maybe to get a couple of signed shirts, or, you know, a couple of free bats or something. But yeah.
Perfect.
Was there a big difference for you then between your experiences in county cricket and playing for Scotland? Because obviously with Scotland you've got a very different sort of cricketing nation, really.
Yeah, you play a real mix. So I suppose the majority of associate cricket at the time that I was playing was kind of the top 3 teams were, or top 4 teams were ourselves, Holland, Afghanistan, and Ireland. Not in that order. The Afghans and the Irish lads were higher than us. But you know, you kind of had playing against those teams who you knew that was going to be seriously tough cricket. You know, Afghanistan had a few guys who played a little bit of rogue cricket. You know, just raw talent who just tried to whack everything. Whereas you played against Holland and you played against Ireland, and you had quite a few of those guys playing county cricket, so you kind of knew how they were going to go about it. So then you kind of went into like your Kenyas, your Papua New Guineas, the USA, those guys, and you know, Namibia as well. And you know, there were some very good players in there, but you always thought that if you played your best cricket, you'd beat those guys. The real change, and I suppose the shock for us as a team, was then when we went to play in the World Cup. Every team had a complete set of bowlers. Every team had a complete top 6, and that was your challenge. You couldn't get 3 early and they'd roll over. You know, you had to kind of really really work them out, and actually, you know, to win a game, you had to basically dominate in every facet as an associate nation in that setup.
Rob, just jumping in on that.
Yeah.
If you can hear me, I've just sent a message in here, sort of suggesting that, you know, your time spent at Market Harbour might have sort of, you know, set you up well for that, mate. Where there's a couple of strong lads, and then you know, you have to look to sort of hold it all together.
Well, I think a bit, yeah. I'll tell you what, there's a couple of rogue units in that as well.
Rob, just picking up on a couple of bits. I actually got a compliment for you, mate, so you'll be pleased with this. But Dee Burton, so mother of Tom Burton, who was at Warwickshire, Leicester, etc., now out in Australia. She said a big shout out to Rob and all the Oakham lads for raising a lot of money for the Rutland Food Bank there. Everyone's very grateful. That's pretty cool.
Thanks very much. Yeah, no, it's nice. That's lovely to hear.
Dee, thanks for that. Couple of other ones. Michael O'Connor was interested in what environment you've created as a coach at Loughborough. So yeah, I guess what sort of environment is it? Is it that, you know, based on your coaching principles, philosophy, etc.? What have you tried to create with the Loughborough girls? Yeah,
the really good question. For me, when I came in as head coach, it was about setting up an environment where players felt backed. I think one of the things that I've learned in the women's game is a lot of players are heading into situations for the first time, or, you know, if you're a young girl coming up, you're playing in a lads team at your club, and actually, you know, for our girls, they were heading into playing in Super League games against international players, having never experienced that before. So essentially, what I've tried to do is create an environment where myself and the girls are 100% clear on what they've got to achieve to be successful within their own game. So yes, we do our team stuff, and, you know, we have a document of how we want to play in the T20 format, and that will obviously now, with the new setup, going to 50 over, and also a little bit for the 100 to try and give those girls that experience. But essentially, each individual player and myself and our other coaches need to know what process that player is going to go through to be successful, and then completely back it. You know, we had a thing. I'd have no issue in the Super League if a player got out caught 45 trying to lap a seamer, if I knew that was one of our strengths. And actually, you know, sometimes I think players can be in the middle and, you know, find themselves in a situation. They'll go, right, I want to take this option. This is a scoring option for me, but not 100% sure about it. You know, and they can be not 100% sure about it for a number of reasons. It can be because they don't back the shot themselves. It can be they're worried about what coaches or other players might think about them, and that's been a big one for us. Is kind of, what do other people think? And I think as a player, you've got to be able to go, I don't care what other people think. You know, I'm going to do what works for me. And so it's just, it was just an environment of where we're going, right, okay, if you're going to go out and play, you're going to take an option. Let's make sure it's one that everyone sitting and watching is 100% backing. And it was, you know, it was little things, tried to bring in little things where, you know, I would always, on a match day for a T20, I'd always position myself in our little dugout next to where the player's going to walk past. And that is not because I want to get at a player if they get out or anything. That's just to be there for, you know, it might be a high five or a fist pump or a unlucky mate or well played, but actually something just so the player doesn't go into the changing room having not heard from anyone. You know, because sometimes you've got that walk off, you walk past the players, you go into the changing room and no one said a word to you. And actually, I think that's dreadful. Like, that's because as a player, you just think about what you've done. Whereas actually, if someone just goes, "Too unlucky," you know. So that was something that I brought in that hopefully, you know, if it would reassure players that the option they took was hopefully the right one. And if it wasn't, then it's just a conversation. You know, the communication between players is massive. They've got to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. And that's great advice, Rob. And I think that, I hope, Michael, that's sort of
giving you an insight really into an elite environment for a coach. And I think certainly, Rob, that the points you say there, I think if you can't relate to it as a coach, you can relate to it as a player and vice versa. So thanks so much for that. We've had an interesting one coming from Brent Williams here, Rob, which is brilliant. So Brent was at Kegworth, obviously, for a number of years. And his words are, I remember Rob and I having a few choice words when he was at Loughborough. I can't believe that for 1 minute, knowing you two characters. And it went on for the whole game, again, unsurprisingly. But listening to now, Rob is a top bloke. So there we go. I could tell you a few things, Brent, but we'll leave it there. That's lovely that you think that.
I think we've got two good questions coming here, Tom.
Yeah.
Scott Green said, Matt Boyce said on another podcast, that's the Drinks at 15 podcast, said on another podcast that sledging at village level is a lot worse than the professional game. How have you found it, and what are your thoughts on the Rutland Derby?
Good question. I think you know what. There's some of the things that there's heard some brilliant stuff on a Saturday afternoon. I think as a I always approached club cricket to go out and do as well as I could. I hope that came across to the guys I played against and the guys that I played with. But I'd hope I never rocked up on a Saturday and thought I don't really want to be here because I'm a county pro. But what I did know was that every single person in that opposition are gunning to get the county pro out. Whichever team you're playing against, that if there's a county pro in that team, someone wants to be able to get that person out. And that was one thing that I always thought, right, okay, just don't give someone please don't give someone the pleasure of get me out with a good ball, fair enough, but don't get caught cow trying to hit another six because you've already hit one there and you think you can do it again, or just go about it as in a way that you're gonna give yourself the best chance to do well.
I think you played the game pretty hard, Robert. I think that's what I think. If you play with that approach, and that's something I've always tried to do as a player, but you're the first to shake hands after and like you say, have a beer in the bar, which I'd also like to think I'm pretty much first in the bar after as well. That all that gets left on the field. And I think that is where, I don't know how you see this, Ben, or Rob, in fact, but I think that's where the game's changed from when I was 13, 14, starting to play senior cricket, was that you'd have some serious battles on the field in club cricket, but it was always left. It wasn't, I'll see you next time, or I'll see you around the car park, or wait till the away fixture. It was, well, let's get the youngster a drink and we'll have a chat, and we're all. And I think you're right there. I think there has to be an element of maturity about it all, isn't there? Is that the blokes who carry themselves best are the ones that, like you, Rob, if I was to play against you, I know we'd have a hard battle. I know it would be, but whatever was said after, that's it. And there's an element of that, isn't there? Element, I think, now with some of the youngsters coming through, especially some of the younger pros that I've seen, it's that lack of maturity to be able to leave it on the field.
Yeah, I think, you see some stuff that flies around. I think one of the issues now as well is, and without trying to sound old, but, with Twitter and Instagram around now, something can happen on the field and someone tweets about it and it spreads like wildfire and everything. And actually, you're right. For me, it was some of the best games I've had are ones where I've had a really good battle, and it's afterwards, and we've then had a drink in the bar and said, "Do you know what? Yeah, that was pretty good fun." Because we're all competitive guys who go out on a Saturday, or guys who go and play first class cricket. Everyone wants to win the game that they're playing in, and I think what is important is that if you do play it hard, and I would say to young guys who are playing is, if you're going to go hard on the pitch, make sure, one, that if someone comes back at you, you're ready for it, but also leave it when you cross the boundary, because that's the kind of thing you don't want to be. You don't particularly want a reputation of being someone who played hard on the field but then wasn't a great guy off the field as well.
No.
I think
cricket spits out people like them, doesn't it? And like yourself, with having finished your professional playing days. Now, there was no doubt after you finished that you were always going to find a career in that you'd find your feet pretty quick because of the way you conducted yourself during them days. At the same time, I've come up against guys. This is not a time to mention names. I'll do that off the live in a minute to you, Rob. But there's guys I've played against in club cricket that have come down from county contracts, and they've just behaved appallingly. And I think that it's funny because some of them are 10 years ago and you still remember them. And like you say there, is that every game you play, you've got that reputation. And that's really insightful there. Thanks for that. Rob, you have. Sorry, Ben. Rob has dodged the question there, Rob. So one answer: Oakham or Uppingham, please, in the derby.
Sorry, say that again. Sorry.
Oakham or Uppingham in the derby.
I'd have to go Oakham because we beat them twice last year.
For those who lost connection there, that was Uppingham. So thanks for that. Ben, sorry, you asked a question.
Chris Walsh has said, "Is there sledging in the women's game, or is it a bloke thing?"
Yes, that's a really good question. There is very little sledging in the women's game. There's very little sledging direct. Yeah, it hardly happens. Do
you think there's a reason for that?
I don't know. I think, one thing someone said to me when I first started with Loughborough and we played a game on TV, was they said, I watched the game, and they were a fan of men's cricket. So they said, I watched the game. And one thing I noticed was the girls all played with a smile on their face. And actually, that's always kind of stuck with me because, they love what they do. Enjoyment is a massive thing in terms, across men's and women's cricket. You've got to enjoy the game you're playing. But I don't know the reason, but the girls don't necessarily tap into, I suppose, the mental side of the game through sledging or chatting to batsmen as much as the men do. And I don't know if that's a male-female thing or whether that's part of women girls having grown up again playing in boys cricket and kind of felt a little bit like, okay, I'm just going to sit back and
I guess maybe one of the things you mentioned earlier about how it's currently is quite a small circle, especially with the international players, that a lot of them are probably quite good mates.
Yeah, they all know each other.
That's a great point, Ben.
Yeah, I think Ben, you might have a point there in that plays quite a big part. Is women's cricket is still quite a small world, and that potentially is a reason for why it doesn't happen so much. Even if you think about we've got girls who for example are in our team at Loughborough from a university point of view, will play in the Super League or played in the Super League for Southern Vipers, but played their county cricket at Kent. So straight away they're playing for 3 different teams with completely different people every single time. Maybe a few crossing over, and actually, they're playing with a lot of the girls who they might then come up against in another competition. I'll tell you what it does do is it makes the analysis of players pre-game nice and easy, because you just hand it over to the players and go, right, how's she play? How's she going to bowl? What's her strengths? What's her weaknesses? And you can get some good info that way. But it does, sledging in the women's game, I don't know if it's something that will come in much. It's something the challenge for us is how do we then create pressure in the middle if we're not using words at batters in the right way. For me, if you're going to sledge, it's got to be done the right way. But if you're going to, if you're not going to use words at batters in the girls' game, then how else do you build pressure on a batter? Because I think the standard of batting in the women's game has got much higher over the last few years, and potentially from a bowling point of view, it's a game dominated by medium pace and spin bowling, and England are crying out for someone who can bowl 75 mile an hour, like Catherine Brunt could a few years ago. you know, a young fast bowler who can create pressure in a exciting, hostile way in the women's game, I think is something that England are crying out for. You look at the Aussies and they've got Vlamerick and Elise Perry. Kiwis have got Soph Devine. All those guys bowl pretty hostile, fast medium pace. So I think that's, you know, if anyone's got a tall daughter who bowls pretty quick, let us know, because she'll be.
Oakham need a first changer. That's what he's getting at.
Yeah.
Look, Rob on his left arm spin now.
That's a great insight. Yeah, that's not a topic today, left arm spin, funnily enough. Rob, we have got one more topic to cover actually today, and I've sort of promised to get this done, was on bowling machines. So if I just tee this up a little bit, having sort of coached myself now for probably 13, 14 years, my view on bowling machines is very much that fantastic bit of equipment, right? Great bit of innovation, fantastic usage for clubs to have access to, for players to have access to. Over time, though, you develop an attitude towards them or a viewpoint. And I'm quite strong on my view towards bowling machines, which is they're absolutely great, providing a player could give a reason as to why they're using them at that particular time during that session in the context of what they're trying to achieve. And I think something that you battle against as a coach is what we're doing today. I'm going to hit someone on the machine, because inevitably 7 or 8 times out of 10 with a club player or a young cricketer, that involves just smashing half volleys, getting into no shape, no position, nothing like that. The other side to that is that I'm very much a firm believer in that ability to watch the ball out of the bowler's hand. And if you've got any form of pre-movement or anything you might slightly do, whether it's your head slightly lining it up or your shoulder moving or your foot transferring your weight slightly, whatever that might be, very hard to get the timings of their movements when you're just watching out of a machine. So that's why I've sort of preferred the sidearm flicker side of things in the last few years since they've come around. And just to finish us off today, Rob, I was interested in what your viewpoint is. I mean, that's my view and how I impart it on the players I work with. It's very much an open book. If they want to do it and they can justify why, fine. But it's not something I'd say, what do you want to do today? Machine, because I know the ones that would say that every single time. What's your take on bowling machines?
Yeah, and it's a really interesting one, because I personally think the sidearm's been one of the best inventions for cricket coaching, because it's allowed coaches to replicate the pressure and intensity more closely than machine can or throws can. And I think, you know, for us, we're lucky, obviously, at Loughborough, we've got the traditional bowling machine, and we've also got a Merlin. So I think they played, you know, the traditional bowling machine plays its role for if you're working on something technically and you need to get volume in, then that can be great to start with. But at some point, you have to progress everything you do. And I think the balance is how much time do you spend on the machine doing your technical work before you progress it. So for the standard bowling machine, I've minimised, you know, time we spend on that. With the players, we try and progress onto sidearm or throws as quickly as possible.
Is that about buy-in though, Rob? Because, sorry to just sort of interject here, but the view that most amateur cricketers / coaches would take is that, well, the machine's not out, so it can't be a good session. So if you had to sort of change a buy-in to that?
I suppose I've got the beauty of the level that I'm coaching at now, where when I coach with the players, it's me and the player, you know, and we've built a relationship to go and work. And I think sometimes, you know, when you enter a coaching session and you're in a hall that's got a balcony and parents might be there or other coaches might be there, and that viewpoint of, well, the machine's not out, so
it's a great point.
What are we doing?
I think that's something that's been built up, I guess, over over time, because obviously when the bowling machines first came out and people used them, that counties weren't necessarily available for clubs. I remember a lot going through the county age groups. A lot of the training sessions would be batting stuff would be set around the bowling machine, and for a long time that was this is what you use for a batting session. And also it was you arrive at the venue, you see the bowling machine, you think, oh God, we're getting peppered today. And I think the view needs to change really, especially with the use of the sidearm.
Yeah, I think it's tough though, because the machine for me does serve a purpose, but actually, like I said earlier to the girls, it's about what are you doing and why are you doing it. And actually, if you can say to someone, like you said, Tom, if a player comes to you and says, I want to do the machine, well, why are you using the machine? Okay, what do you want to do today and why do we need the machine? What can be achieved on the machine that I can't achieve through sidearm, where you can pick up routine of your pre-ball movements, you can pick up the release out of the sidearm, because I think that gets you back closer to your match intensity, which essentially is where we want to get to with our players, is can we train as close to, if not harder than match intensity, and test our skills there, so that when we do go and play, we've got the confidence that we've been able to do it at that intensity before. I think
it's quite fitting, isn't it, going back into a lot of the questions we've had in previous weeks, Rob, have been about how am I going to prepare quickly and effectively out of this lockdown. And it's quite fitting, really, isn't it, what you're saying there about how you feel the sidearm perhaps is a better gap bridge than a machine for getting back into game practice.
Yeah, I think we've got a machine here in Oakham, and the first thing was guys put on the group chat was, does the bowling machine work? And it's like,
which proves what we're saying.
But actually, again, normally you would say, well, in any other situation, is there a coach available, or can anyone come down and throw or bowl or whatever? But actually, in this situation where I was saying earlier, if you're the only person in your household that can play cricket, well, pretty much anyone can feed a bowling machine. It's got to be done safely, but anyone can pretty much learn quite quickly how to feed a machine. So it might be that is for clubs, that might be the option they go to begin with.
It's like you said, you made a great point there, Rob, when you said about players having to sort of almost justify their use of it. And I kind of feel that the only way you can justify it is by saying you're working, on like you said, it's a closed practice, a closed skill. You're working on one specific thing, drilling, working on technique, and then it's the progression that you use to get through to match intensity.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just as a player, it's about understanding, what you're going to use the machine for, but actually also where it fits in your plan of development. And that's, for club guys, I'd hope that a lot of club guys, a lot of the guys that you work with, all have plans and goals of what they want to achieve in club cricket. Be it I want to score my first league 100, or I've scored 400 runs for the last 3 years. This year I want to break 500. I think everyone at whatever level you're playing, you need to have some sort of goal as to what you want to achieve. And for the young lads, it might be something like that. When they get back to playing, what do you want to get out of this summer? What do you want to get? If we can't play any competitive cricket, but we're allowed to train, what do you want to get out of your training, so that when we do go back into the winter, you've not missed out on a complete summer? And I think that sometimes, people think, well, we're not going to get any cricket, so my summer's gone. Well, actually, that's not true at all. There's so many other things that you can do to better yourself as a player over this time when we can't go out and play competitive cricket. Drills you can do in the garden. There's been so much good stuff on, we talk about social media being an issue, but actually there's been so much good stuff on social media around people who have done different coaching stuff. Oh,
Ben has never hit so straight through mid-on, Rob, than he has in his back garden for the last 12 weeks.
But I think it's a great opportunity for players if they can't get to their local club and you can do stuff in your back garden, just nail your basics. Because if you can do that, you're almost putting a little bit of work that's in the locker, that's banked. You've got that done. I think for batters especially, you can do loads of that. A bit more challenging for the bowlers. I think that's going to be one of the probably risk areas coming back, is how bowlers build back up into training so that they're ready to go for matches. And I think the fast bowlers especially need to be quite careful with how many overs they're bowling when we are allowed to get back to training, and not suddenly first training session back, right, I'm going to bowl a 10 over spell in the nets, and because you're likely to hurt yourself. So actually talk about having goals, have a plan as well of roughly what you want to do when you do get back to bowling.
Yeah, there's so much good material out there, like you said, Rob. It's just about asking, isn't it? And if you're unsure, if you're a club bowler and you're not sure about what that is, ask a coach, ask someone who does know, because there's no shame in that if it's going to protect your body and preserve you. Same as a conditioning coach, you'd ask them for advice if you're doing PT training. So, guys, look, that I'm aware I've just run over the sort of time we do our coffee chat. Rob, there was one question. What's your choice of coffee, by the way? Mine's in a sort of an Italian blend, medium strong. 2 to 3. What was yours today?
Mine was a Nescafe Americano, pre-ground. Very nice.
That almost sounds like you're on commission.
Yeah.
That's great. Look, Rob, thanks. I'm sure everyone who's watching it would agree that's been great. Rob, top bloke, and I think the great thing about yourself is people can relate to you, whatever level or whatever cricket they've played, and I hope that you sort of enjoyed chatting with us today, mate.
It's been brilliant. Thank you.
It's been good.
Also, if anyone's got any other questions that didn't get answered today, then happy to fire them across and I'll do my best to answer them.
No, that's great, Rob. Look, Ben, thanks a lot for your time as well this morning, pal. We hope that you get unlocked soon, mate, and they let you out on probation or something. But guys, look, thanks a lot. We've got a couple of things coming up. Next Thursday, we've got our webinar Thursday evening, 4:30. That's with Paul Shaw, ex-England women's coach of 10 years, leadership guru and building winning teams. I've been lucky enough to listen to Paul now 3 or 4 times. I'm not sure if you have at some point, Rob, but
I have, yeah.
Paul is outstanding, and that'll be really worth. I'm looking forward to listening into that. That's 4:30 next week, guys. If you can get to that, it'll be really worth doing, I think, for any club captains, club coaches, business owners, cricketers, whatever. That can appeal to so many areas of leadership. And then obviously we're back in again next Friday, 10 a.m. We've got a special guest, Nathan Book, next Friday morning from Northamptonshire County Cricket Club, to be chatting with us all things cricket, county cricket, and reviewing the week in cricket. So, guys, thanks very much for that. Great to see everyone, and we will catch you next week. Thank you.